Parashat Ki Tetse. Parashat Ki Tetse is one of the parashot that are before the month of before Rosh Hashana. And of course, it's all around the preparation for the new year. And Parashat Ki Tetse, it looks like it's discussing in the Torah itself. We're talking about the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 21, verse 10. It looks like it's dealing with a lot of topics that it looks like they're not connected to each other. It looks like. However, it is connected. And of course, we don't have the time to cover all of these topics, but we're going to discuss three topics that are connected. One from the beginning, one from the middle, and one from the end. The beginning, it says, Ki tetse lemilchama l'oivecha, as you wage war on your enemy, you go for war against your enemies, and the God, your Lord, will give him in your hand. Now it continues about, and you see in the captivity a beautiful woman, and then what you do about it if you want the woman and you take her with you, and we'll go back to it. Then you have in the middle a story, an issue in which a man marries a woman, and in the morning after the wedding he says, she's not virgin. I don't want to marry her. I don't want to, go home to your father. What happens with that? The end of the parasha is a very famous few sentences, few verses, because these verses are being read on Purim, on the Shabbat before Purim, Shabbat Zohar, and on Purim, which is Zachor et asher asa lecha Amalek. We will find it in the end of Parashat Ki Tetse, which is Deuteronomy 25, verse 17. Zachor et asher asa lecha Amalek. Remember what the Amalek did to you. Which this part is very, very, very important, because Halacha says that, the Torah, most of the Torah, if you are busy, you're a woman, you're a man, and you're sick, whatever, you're exempt from the Torah reading. But these few verses, remember the Amalek, nobody is exempt. Sick, old, young, whatever, children, everybody has to hear that. Why is it so important? So here, let's start from the beginning. Ki tetse lemilchama l'oivecha, as we said in the previous years, it's a very, very important concept, if not the most important concept. What is the concept around? The concept is around that the coming in few weeks, we have Rosh Hashana, and Rosh Hashana is our opportunity to start all over again. Who doesn't want another opportunity? Who doesn't want to start all over again? Who doesn't want to have a makeover? That Rosh Hashana, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, it's a makeover. It's a time of 21 days in which a person can really rejuvenate all what is about. If we're talking about transformation, starting all over again, hope, change, improving yourself, whatever name you want to give it, this is the time of the year. Now the question is, what is that you want to become? A lot of people have a mistake, big mistake, and because in the moment you study Kabbalah, you realize the big mistake that most people do is they are focusing on the means and not on the goal. And if you're focusing on the mean, you're making a big mistake. A lot of people think, and especially, I don't blame them, because that's a way we're brainwashed by the education system, by the media, by all what's around us, family, members, friends, and so on. We live in a world of illusion, the world of materialism. And the point is, when you really ask people the question, what is that you really want? People don't say a big house. They don't say healthy body. They don't say, I want to be blonde and blue eyes, or brunette with I don't know, it doesn't matter, with green eyes. If you ask people really what they want to be happy. That's what people want. They want to be happy. Why do they want a certain gadget or a certain house or a certain car? Because they were made believe that if they have it, they'll have happiness. And what we know from experience, if you just contemplate for a little bit and think about it, what you get from materialistic objects and assets, or whatever materialistic part of it, you get kind of a short-term fulfillment. That I call it high and buy. You get high, you're very excited, and then now what? Why? Because it's focusing on the wrong goal. So what is the right goal? What is the real goal? The real goal, what everything is about, that's one story. That everything is about that story and nothing else. And that's a story of each one of us, every human being. Is we are about happiness and fulfillment. Nothing else. So if I'm happy, do I care what size is my apartment? Of course, it's much more comfortable if it's bigger. Or it's much bigger, then it's not comfortable because I have to clean too much. You know, everybody has his own definition. But the moment we're happy, we don't care about the details too much. About the how tall we are and stuff like this. This is something that is not essential to happiness. So what's essential to happiness? And what's essential to happiness is one big thing. There's one thing which is called illusion, and there's reality. Reality is the real world, and the real world is the world of spirituality. But spirituality knows everything. Not everything, it's most of it. Because being happy, unconditionally happy, having the strength of being happy no matter what, that's called SQ. So years ago, people were trying to find out what's the guarantee to success, and they found out that IQ, intellectual quotients, is very important. And then they're measuring everybody by intellectual quotients. But then after a while, people start to realize, some people stopped and said, yeah, but this guy has an IQ of 240 and he's miserable most of the time. And these guys are just maybe have an IQ of 108 and they're nice people. So it's like, there's not always a correlation between high IQ and contentment and fulfillment. So why should I be too smart when I'm not happy? And a lot of people that I met in university and that they had a very, very high IQ, they were bitter and miserable. They never had any connection with anyone. And we know today that being able to connect to people is essential for happiness and fulfillment. So then they came out with another definition, which is called essential. Good relationship with other people are essential for happiness. These are numbers that it's modern research showing that the last few years. But then came another researcher that said, people could be very, very good with other people. But life is not about just, the ongoing thing. Life has a lot of, unexpected events. You are very good with, you have a very good communication with your husband or your wife, your children, and then one of them dies. And a lot of people, the moment somebody that had a very strong emotional connection to that person, and that person dies, that's a death sentence for the person himself who survived. And a lot of people die from cancer. That research already from the 70s and 80s, that if people emotionally don't get over a loss, within few years they're gone by themselves. 2, 3 years, 5 years, cancer, it's over with. Game over. How many people don't have a life after losing a child? They just get over that. So could be they had a very high EQ and have had a very good emotional connection with other people, but they couldn't overcome the trauma. And then researchers came with SQ, spiritual quotients. I made a lot of research myself. How do you define spiritual quotients? And it seems to be, it's not that clear. It's not that clear, but one definition is there for spiritual quadrants, which means the ability of a person to reinvent themselves. Which means I was like this is my belief system, and you know what? It doesn't work for me anymore. So I can overcome my belief system, I can overcome my setup, my emotional structure and so on, and I can reinvent myself in order to get to my goal, which is contentment, which is fulfillment, which is happiness, no matter what. Is that possible? Yes, the world is full of people that never overcame crisis. But there's a lot of people, the world is full of them, that overcame horrible crisis and reinvented themselves. The biggest example en masse is the Holocaust survivors. You would think, with all what's going around this world, that people went through the Holocaust, they're justified taking revenge at the Nazis and all the supporters of the Nazis. However, facts are showing that 99.9999% of Holocaust survivors, instead of taking revenge, they were busy reinventing themselves, rebuilding their families, rebuilding their homes, rebuilding their professions, rebuilding everything, rebuilding their outlook towards life, and they were really successful in building a new generation that was happy, most of it, and successful. So that's SQ. That's the ability of a person to say it was horrible, it was terrible, it didn't work, it was a failure, whatever, and let's start over. And let's do it right. Let's do it great. Let's do it beautiful. Let's do it happy. And millions of people did it. Millions of people survive huge crises like tornadoes and hurricanes and other crises. You know, everybody is usually focusing in a movie or in a book on somebody who was traumatized and had a terrible life. Sad stories. But there are many more great stories of people that did not become books. They simply lived. Which means people do have the ability to do that. Now, what is the condition for SQ? Although it was terrible, there is a hope and there is a future, and I want to focus on my future and not on my pain. Now, overcoming our negativity and recreating our positivity, focusing on the light and not on the darkness, that's the definition of spirituality. Rav Ashlag explains that there's that the definition of spirituality is that people who are not spiritual or behave in a non-spiritual way, they're basically reasonable. They go with reasoning and with logic, which means the logic of yesterday is the logic of tomorrow, and I'm painful, I'm painful. I'm angry, I'm angry. I acknowledge my emotions. That happens also with animals. That's called nefesh. That's a level of nefesh. But the moment a person acknowledges I have a limitation, I have pain, I'm in trouble, and the person ascends above it and beyond it, which means the person is trying to connect to something being, has logically a lot of enemies. The boss, employees, your spouse, your children, the neighbor, circumstances, economy. There are a lot of enemies. There's so much horrible stuff around the world that you can say it's your enemies. They are enemies. But it says also, Ki Tetse lemilchama al oivecha, you wage war against your enemies, unetano Hashem Elokecha beyadecha, and the Lord God will give him in your hand. Him, we started the verse with plural. How come it became single? And the answer is very simple. Who's the real enemy? Let's say you're facing a person that is unbelievably mean and let's say even stupid. Okay? He's not listening. He doesn't want to deal with you. He wants to hate you. And you can't come to reason with him. Okay? You think that person is stupid, right? That person is mean. That person is evil. He's your enemy. So, consciously, you would say, what can I do about it? I can't come to reason with them. That person is an enemy. Okay? And that's normal. Of course we want. So why aren't we that person? Oh, because we don't know how to do that. Because we don't even try to do that. We don't believe we have the ability to do that. We admire people who can do that. But we don't know how to do it. Give another example. You see a person dealing with any kind of pain and strife. You know that in such an event, you'll be hysterically, painful, upset, mean, and so on. You'll be consumed by the stress and the negativity. But you see another person that reacts in a very noble, peaceful, spiritual, powerful way. You look at that person and say, I would like to be that kind of a person. Of course we would like to be that kind of a person. But why can't we? And the answer is, yes, we can. If we just understand what does it take to do that, to be that person. And the answer is very simple. If you go around and find out what are the maladies of mankind. So people will immediately start to, say by rote. Famine, injustice, inequality, racism. Matured too fast. And I realized that humanity's problem is not that we don't have enough food. We can grow much more food that we can consume all of mankind. The problem is we don't divide this food properly. The world is divided to part of the world that has a problem with obesity and throwing huge amount of food as waste, and the rest of the world, they are in malnutrition. How could you explain that? How could you explain that in order to keep the food prices high, a lot of food is being thrown and exterminated just to keep the prices high? This method is being used all over the world, right? I remember, I'll never forget that article in the Herald Tribune I read a few years ago. This guy, journalist, he goes to Africa somewhere. He goes to this clinic of Doctors Without Borders, and he sees this horribly looking kids. Malnutrition is terrible. And he says in his article, don't write the check already. He says, listen to the rest. He says, I'm looking at the kids and I'm so horrified. It's horrible, horrible. How can a human being look at it without going crazy? You have to do something about it. And then he said, I noticed after a while something that I didn't notice before because I was focusing on the kids. I realized that some of the parents, a lot of the parents are overweight. And I started to ask, what's going on over here? How come the parents, some of them are overweight, while the babies and the children are malnutritioned? And why? And they said this is the culture. There's food, they put it on the table, the parents eat as much as they can, whatever is left goes to the children. If there's nothing left, they don't eat. What? This is what it said. Then he said, I wanted to know what's going on because it was okay till a few years ago. He says, oh, they don't grow enough food. Why? He says, not enough food. It's like there's drought. So I go out to the fields, and I see the fields are dry, but then I see there's a lake. And the lake, this is our culture. You know what? This is your culture, but your children are starving. So what is this culture for if your children are starving? So he said the problem is cultural and the problem is belief systems. It's not about growing food. Same thing. Let's say there are people that really want to feed their children, they really want to work, but there's not enough water. Why? The world does not enough budget to bring water and to help those people. There's not enough food to feed those people. So we know, that's what I learned at my years in university, that the problem is not with the technology. We can grow enough food for everyone. We can build housing for everyone. The problem is greed. The problem is profit from wars by selling weapons. There's not going to be peace. Because who's sitting in the lobbies in different parliaments and congress around the world? The manufacturers of weapons are too powerful to fight them. What about there's a medicine that is cheap and easy to get, which is good against many diseases? Most of the medical companies, they have lobbies strong enough not to allow that to happen because it's losing a lot of money. I'm just giving hypothetical things. I'm not saying about anything else. I'm talking about human nature, which means if you want to think that the problem is wars, famine, and whatever you just want to name it, crime. No, it's not. It's human desire to receive for the self alone. This is the problem. Or what other people call it, the evil inclination. This is the problem. We have one enemy. It's not famine. It's not war. It's not stupidity. It's evil inclination. So when you really go for war, you really want to fight, you really want from the bottom of your heart, genuinely, authentically, you really want to fight all the evil in the world, you will realize that this evil is starting with yourself, with the evil inside yourself, because you can be right, but you're not the light. You can have your standpoint as right, but you're not solving the problem because you started. Most of the diseases today can be identified, connected to somehow inability of a person to overcome crisis and stress and stuff like this, which is basically SQ, spiritual quotas. So that's why the Torah says, as you wage war against your enemies, if you really make the war and you really fight genuinely and authentically, and you really want to have a solution, you will find out, finally, there's only one enemy. And that's your own personal enemy. That's your own desire to receive for the self alone, or your own evil inclination. That's your enemy. So then it says, "Unetano Hashem Elokei Abedecha," and then God your Lord will give him into your hands. Why? Because you earned it. Very simply. Because you just earned it. And it's yours. No free lunches. And Rabbi Zakluria explains in his book, The Gate of Reincarnations, and he's saying that when a person wants to fight the most illogical windmills, the most illogical giants of enemies, logically, you're too small to fight them. But if you really make a fight authentic and genuine, and you're really willing to overcome your own limitation, you'll get the help. Because there are a lot of souls that connect to your root soul that already finished their tikkun. They already completed. And what do you think they're doing? They're your cheerleaders. They're just waiting to help you to move over the threshold to the next level. What you have to do is just to show an effort. Just to show an effort. That's why it says, Yagata umatzata ta'amin, Rabbi Akiva is saying in Ethics of the Fathers, you make the effort, you'll find an unexpected solution. How did you find an unexpected solution? Because it's outside of the box. How do you get outside the box? You just make the effort with a wholehearted trust that I need to make the effort. And the solution will be given to me. Who will give you the solution? Oh, there are enough angels, higher souls. They will come into you and show you the solution. How many people in the history of mankind found the illogical solution? Because they just wanted it, because they just gave it, because they put the effort. Humanity is built on illogical quantum leaps, which means unexplained. Nobody can understand how a second earlier, a day later, I had no idea, suddenly, out of the blue, I get this flash coming in. Where is it coming from? Outside the box. Because you earn it. Now, what you have to do is to wage war against your enemies. But if you just understand, there's no enemies. There's only one enemy. One enemy. And this enemy is what makes us blind, what makes us stupid, what makes us small, what makes us limited, what makes us unresourceful. This enemy is the desire to receive for the self alone or the evil inclination. So, if you want to explain what life is about, human life is about the war. And that's why, in many spiritual teachings, the real human being is a spiritual warrior. Because he understands that the war is 24/7. 24/7. It's all about being in war, at war. You wake up in the morning, the war just started. It didn't just start because the war goes on the whole day. It goes till the moment you go to sleep, and you fight even when you're asleep, if you are in the right consciousness. Because even when you sleep, everybody who goes to sleep have a sweet, good night's sleep, and you wake up refreshed. No, a lot of people go to sleep, and the whole night it's nightmare. Why? Because you didn't fight during the day, you didn't fight as you went to sleep, because that's also a war. You have to destroy all your demons when you go to sleep. That's what the Shema Yisrael is. That's why you have to meditate and forgive before you go to sleep. And that's why the Zohar says, you say, B'yadcha afkid ruchi, in the bedtime Shema, I deposit my soul in your hands. And that's not easy. How many people can overcome the idea that they're depositing their souls, and nobody guarantees you that you're going to get your soul back in the morning? Right? Does everybody who goes to sleep wakes up in the morning? No. No. So what's the guarantee? No guarantee. No guarantee. But the question is, if you don't really deposit your soul, it doesn't go high enough to receive the fulfillment and the nourishment it needs in order to function normally on the next day. And that's why the next verse, verse 11 on chapter 21, it says, V'ra'ita b'shivya eshet yefat toar. And as you win the war, you see in captivity a beautiful woman. V'chashakta ba. And you want her. But just a second. We read in the previous chapter, last week's parasha, yesterday's parasha, that the people who went to war by the biblical law were only the righteous people. There were conditions. If you planted a vineyard and you did not eat the fruit yet, go home. We don't want you to be afraid all the time about your vineyard. You can't fight because you're busy in the vineyard. Go be with the vineyard. What if you just engage to another woman and you didn't get married yet? Go home, because you're going to think, oh, I just got engaged, I didn't even get married. Don't, you have to be at war. You can't be in two places. Go home. And then in the end, what if I just started to build a house? I didn't dedicate the house yet. Go home. Finish the house. Then come to fight. So who was left? And then in the end, they said, whoever is afraid, go home. So who went to war? Only very righteous people. Only people who really knew how to focus on the real war. So those people, they will look at the beautiful women among the enemy, and then they would like to take them home. That's not right. That's not right. So what we're talking about is that if you really look carefully about the words, it says, and God your Lord will give him, your enemy, in your hands, Veshavita shivo, and you will take his spoils. He doesn't say you will take spoils from him. You will take his spoil. What's his spoil? Your soul is his spoil. Before you got into war, your soul was kept in the hands of the evil inclination. You were subjugated to all of these negativities, and all of these wannabes, your enemy. You know who's my true identity? I have surprises for you. Every year, during this time of the year, it's another time to wage war and to get another level of awareness that we didn't have the years before. And first of all, the awareness that life is an ongoing fight. As long as you live, you have to fight. The moment you stop fighting, you die. What is the fight? The fight is to fight to capture your own soul, your own identity from the enemy. One enemy. The one enemy with multiple faces, but that's one enemy. Or more that, it doesn't matter what was it about. It's all about who we are and our relationship with the light force of the creation, which is the light of God. Now, the Zohar doesn't start with Ki Tetse LaMilchama Lo Oivecha. The Zohar is starting with another story, the story that we can read. But what's her fault? What's her fault? Why should she be stuck with a man that made his business to defame her in public? Again, says the Zohar, this is a very powerful spiritual concept. And that concept is complementing the concept we started with. Israel. And they died the next day. The rest of the nation that listened to them and cried the whole night, they were sentenced to death. So 40 years, everybody died on the day anniversary of the returning of the spies, 9th of Av, till the last one of them died, and then they could get into the promised land. So we learn from that, says the Zohar, that the moment you bad-mouthing the land, but what do you mean the land? So let's say I live in England, I live in France. I'm not supposed to find what's wrong with the country? And the Zohar says, no, this is not the story. It's not the land physically, it's reality. If you're really connected to SQ, spiritual quadrants, if you're really the spiritual warrior, you don't spend time and energy on blaming, because blaming doesn't help anyone. Blaming means, when we blame somebody else, if you know Kabbalah, by the moment you blame, I blame that person that because of him I'm miserable. You don't have a problem with that person. You have a problem with God. Didn't it say you should not have another God? What do you mean a God? A God, the God, is the God that is almighty. Which means, whatever happens to us is somehow watched and monitored by God. So, why is that person coming to me to give me trouble? That's my mirror. That's my opportunity. Everything is for the good. So my response should never be blaming another person, because the moment I blame another person, I appoint that person to be responsible for my happiness and my success. And this is illegal by the cosmic law. You cannot put the blame or responsibility or give someone else or something else the power to control you. It's called addiction. So some people have addiction to hating other people. I'm miserable because they are wrong. Some people are addicted to items. I'll be happy the moment I have that item. We all know this is lie. This is a lie. You'll be happy like a little baby for a few minutes, and then you'll be crying why you don't have this and why you don't have it. It's never satiating. It's never satiating. Addiction is never satiation. It's always being hungry. That's addiction. Why? Because you're never connected to your true self. So the moment you are bad-mouthing reality, the earth, which means what happened to me, my height, the color of my eyes, the circumstances of my birth, the circumstances of my growing up, the circumstances of what kind of people surround me, the moment I use it as an excuse for being helpless, hopeless, miserable, or a professional victim, and that moment I basically unsubscribe from fighting the real fight. I'm not a spiritual warrior. I lost the fight. I lost the fight. That moment that I lost the fight, I'm useless. I'm useless. I'm useless to myself. I'm useless to friends, family. I'm just a burden. Because I'm becoming a representative, an agent of negativity. Wherever I'm going to see anything, I'm going to find what's wrong with it. And finding what's wrong with something, it's not a problem, as long as you are taking the responsibility that I found what's wrong, and now I'm going to find how to fix it. People make a living out of that stuff, right? Because they fix stuff that other people don't know how to fix. That's why people pay you to fix stuff. But just to say how wrong it is, either you're just a nasty, mean, unwanted person, or you just So when you're talking about that wife, and the Zohar says that's the earth, that's reality. You don't badmouth reality, because that's the biggest deficiency of a person's character, not wanting to correct and to fix, and instead staying yourself as a victim and finding what's wrong with others. Okay? This is a trait that we all have to get rid of by Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur, because we don't want to go with it to the next year. Just realizing, as a human being, you want to earn your happiness and fulfillment. You want to earn the ability to look at yourself in the mirror and to say, you know what, I'm getting better. There's hope. Life is just getting better. And if it's not getting better, it's going to get much better, because I'm going to work on it. Because I'm fighting for it. Because I deserve it. This fight is all what life is about. And that's why the parasha is finished with something that is out of where you bring it from. It's being described originally in Parashat you want to understand what is the Amalek, is a very simple aspect of our personality. What aspect? Let's say you have a problem. We all experience that. This problem is illogically powerful, stronger than us. And you know what? We all have opportunities in which we're facing those huge, giant problems. And somewhere inside, there's a voice telling us, don't give up. Don't give up. It's either dying right now or fighting for your life. And you know what? Somehow, you wage war against the problem, and you realize you're getting help from unexpected directions. But I did it. I have not even an idea. How did I do it? How did you do it? Because you decided to fight. That moment, you make the fight, God gives you a match. Matches it for you. You made the fight, I'll give you all the help. I'll send you souls that put the right idea in your mind. I'll send you angels that will guide you. I lift you up. A quantum leap, and you find yourself doing something you never even realize it's possible for human being to do. Humans experience that from the dawn of history. When you experience something like this, you feel like, that's worthwhile living. If all my life was just for this moment, it was worthwhile. Why? Because you realize what does it mean to be a warrior, a spiritual warrior. Which means going and being defiant towards your logic. And you know what? You win, you are in exhilaration, you are in such a place that you love everyone, you're excited, you're fulfilled, you're happy, you're content, and it's like you're in love with life. 2 minutes later, 2 hours later, another challenge. And then you hear your voice, that voice in your head saying, oh no, that was a fluke. That success was a fluke. You know, this time it's not going to work. Where is this thought coming from? Where is this idea coming from? You just experienced a miracle happening to you. Where did that come from? That came from your own real enemy, the enemy within. And that enemy is called Amalek. That's the name of the enemy that you have to remember all the time. You have to fight all the time and never forget. Amalek in numerical value is 240, which is Safek, doubt. What is that? It's one of the biggest, most powerful problems that a person has. That's the biggest weapon your dark side is using against you. It's a doubt. Maybe, I made few miracles till now. Maybe, you know what? I don't think I'm going to be able to do it all over again. When you have that doubt, if there's doubt, there's no doubt. You're right now not in doubt. You're in total certainty that the game is over. And when the doubt takes over, game over. From that moment on, it's all down the hill. So fighting the Amalek, this is the duty of every human being, because if you don't fight the Amalek, if you don't fight the doubt, you cannot be a spiritual warrior, because this doubt is everything. When you fight, it means you tell yourself, I have no idea I'm going to win. No idea whatsoever. But I have to fight. I have to fight. When the Amalek, when that doubt comes in, you say, you know what? I don't listen to you. Why? Life has nothing to do with logic. And you're giving me all kind of logic and reason. No, that's illogical doubt. I don't care about these doubts. Losers can give you mountains of doubts. But you know what? You don't get paid for that. You don't get paid for that. So throw the doubts. So this parasha is giving us the power to overcome those doubts. How do you overcome the doubts? You go into a war without thinking. You just fight for it. And that's how you win. And that's what life is about.